Hello, this is Retro Spirits Garden, and this is my Mega Drive shooters ranked. So these are all the Mega Drive shooters I own, and I've ranked them in order of preference. It doesn't contain Panorama Cotton because I haven't spent enough time with this game. It's better than Subterranea, so I know it would come in before that, but other than that, I don't know. And I'm going to do this countdown in the style of a darts and answer, as is customary for these things. Right then, let's crack on. In 25, it's Subterranea. This game is a highly frustrating physics-based graffiti shooting game. You shoot this ugly thing here with the spikes and the massive faces, and you pilot your ship ineffectually around maze-like environments, and you run out of fuel, and you die a lot. You get shot by robots and all sorts. You have to rescue things in some maps. This is like a boss level. As you can see, you'll lose energy by not landing properly, and it's just a very, very boring, frustrating game. It's kind of got like a mazy thing going on. You have to find keys to open doors. Just generally, it's not much fun. So that's why it's at number 25. It looks okay. Sounds a bit nasty, but the gameplay sucks. Number 24 is Galaxy Force 2. Now this is a cracking arcade game. It is a cool Sega Saturn game. It is a marginally offensive Mega Drive game. Visually, it's nowhere near the arcade machine, although, you know, it's got some nice sprites and stuff in the Mega Drive version, you can't argue with that. Colour cycling tunnels. There's just no action in this game. This was not a wise move on anybody's part to try and port this to the Mega Drive. Whereas something like Afterburner 2 had loads of levels and sort of lock-on missile action, this has that, but it's sort of 6 levels long. The missiles auto lock on, and there's not a lot of graphics from the arcade machine. The music's alright, I'll give it that. It kind of plays okay, but it's just very not like the arcade machine it's based on. Yeah, it's not great. At 23, we have Arrow Flash. Now this is a early side-scrolling shooter for the Mega Drive, where you can change your spaceship into a robot. And what that does for you is it gives you a different super weapon. It makes you travel around the screen at different speeds, and it organises your option pods into different formations. As you can see, the graphics are cartoony. They are kind of nice in places, quite a few places actually, and the music is a bit forgettable. We've got some sort of generic bosses. Now this is a very expensive game, for some reason, especially on Japanese import. You can see it throws around a lot of sprites, which is nice, but it's just a bit dull. It's just a bit dull for how much it costs. So, yeah, that's why it's at number 23. Arrow Flash. At 22, it's Thunder Force 2. Now, none of these games are bad on this list, and none of them are horrific. This is my least favourite Thunder Force game of them all. I don't like these top-down sections. The game itself is not very well balanced in terms of difficulty. We've got some weird decisions in the level design, which lead to multiple deaths. This maze structure is tedious to navigate, and the scrolling is quite fast, so you will end up flying into the wall multiple times. The music's not as good as you'd expect from a Technosoft game. It's not bad. Visuals on the side-scrolling levels are okay. Top-down ones, again, it's okay. This is just an okay game. It's frustrating. It's very difficult. Not expensive, but not exciting. That's Thunder Force 2. At 21 is Atomic Robo Kid. Now, the Mega Drive version of this is harder than the PC Engine version, and possibly more arcade accurate than the PC Engine version. Not entirely sure, never played the arcade machine. But what we have here is a side-scrolling shooter which has got incredibly noisy music and sound effects, like raucous style, some decent visuals, and kind of push-scrolling maze action. Some of the enemy placement is annoying in this game, and it respawns. So if you scroll off the screen for a nanosecond, those enemies will come back, and that can be highly frustrating, especially on some of the levels which are more mazy than others. But it's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad, it's not great. That's why it's at the number that is at. That's Atomic Robo Kid. I like some of the enemy designs there. 20. We have Ultimate Tiger. This is a conversion, a pretty solid conversion as it happens, of the Taito arcade machine. We have very luminous tanks, but other than that, it's alright. It's weirdly dour colour-wise in a lot of areas, and then those tanks are like the sun. It's weird. But anyway, it plays okay. The difficulty is ridiculous in this game. The music's pretty decent. Yeah, it's alright. It would be much more pleasant if it had the difficulty of the PC Engine game. But visually, sonically, yeah, it's recognisably Ultimate Tiger. It's a very expensive game to buy on the old Mega Drive, and you'd have to be some sort of self-hating psychopath to enjoy this game, I think, because it doesn't like you. In 19, we have Space Harrier 2. Now this is probably the earliest Mega Drive shooter. It came out in 1988 in Japan, and as you can see, it's a wobbly mess, but we do have nice voice samples. It's an incredibly colourful game considering the Mega Drive's colour limitations. Now if only they had put more frames of animation into the sprites. I think this game runs at 30 frames a second. What do you think looking at the video? It does feel slightly jerky. But having said all that it's slightly jerky, it is a fun game. I do play this more than I really ought to, considering how janky it is. But there we go. It's a fairly cheap game to buy on the Mega Drive, and I think you'll have some fun with it, even though visually, and especially sonically, it's a bit subpar. That's Space Harrier 2. It's 18. We have Darius Extra. Now this is a very recent game. This is a conversion of the Darius arcade machine that appeared on the Mega Drive Mini, and you can buy a hard copy, like a repro thing, for your Mega Drive from a few different outlets, and it's a decent shooter. It's bloody hard because of the way that your ship powers up. Well, it's just a Darius standard powering up, but it takes a long time, and yeah, your normal gun, it's so weak, it's very difficult to shoot some enemies with. Weak and narrow, as it happens. But audio visually, it's pretty sweet. It's quite a lot like the arcade machine, and for that, I can't fault it. It's about 40 quid, but it's decent. If you like old school type shooters, can't go wrong with Darius Extra, although some people report that it doesn't work on their machine. It's 17. We've got Afterburner 2. Now this is the Mega Drive version of Afterburner 2, and it's pretty nice. It's got some tidy visuals. It's not as colourful as the PC Engine version, but the sprites are bigger, it's higher res, it throws a lot of stuff around, as you can see. It's got the same manic gameplay as the arcade machine. We've got auto-firing Vulcan cannons, we've got the lock-on gameplay that you either love or hate, stages that morph colours, and we've got the bonus stages. I think they're kind of okay. They're a bit better than the PC Engine version. Obviously, neither version is a patch from the arcade machine visually, audio visually, but you know, the Mega Drive hasn't got all that, all the extra hardware from the arcade, does it? And it can only display X amount of colours, whereas the arcade machine can display XXX amount of colours. So yeah, Afterburner 2 is alright. At 16, we have Darius II, or Gaia, as it's also known. This is a conversion of another Taito Darius game, and it's pretty good. It's much more playable than the Saturn version of the same game, which is more of a direct arcade conversion. This kind of shrinks down 2 screens into 1 screen, and as it does that, it makes the game slightly easier to manage with the weapon set it gives you and the way that you power up. Graphically and sonically, it leaves a little to be desired, but they've got some warpy background effects there. They're quite nice, aren't they? Yeah, it's not bad. It's not a bad game. Like I said, I don't think any of the games on this list are particularly bad. It's been difficult to order them. Darius II had some fun with this game. Enjoyable. And that's all that I've got to say about that. That's all I've got to say about that. Yeah, 15. We have Zero Wing. Now this is a famous shooter for reasons best left to the past. There was some sort of meme thing, wasn't there? But what it is it's a bit like R-Type. This music's sounds a bit like Van Halen or something, through a synth. It's weird. Yeah, it's a bit like R-Type. You get some outrigger pods, you got a choice of a limited amount of weapons. You've got a thing here where instead of like a force shield that attaches to the front of you, you can nab enemies from the environment and stick them to you like a shield, which is a nice little mechanic. Graphically, a bit cruddy. Sonically, yeah, a bit cruddy. But it's got some massive bosses. I mean, look at this big pink monstrosity, biomechanical beastie. Human in his eye! Hogan Fire makes this game very palatable. Yeah, Zero Wing, it's alright. Yeah, in 14, we have Granada X, or Granada X, as the title screen says. A tank-based shooter, a mazy shooter. Now this is, again, an early MEGADRIVE game, and it throws a lot of sprites around, and you get a different weapon set for each level. You've got like a super shot, and it's just generally a lot of fun. Graphically, as you can see, it's a bit piddly. Sonically, it's a bit piddly. But things do get better a bit later. And the gameplay is tight. So you can't argue with that. A fairly expensive game to buy now though. But if you got this back in the day, second hand, cheap, you probably would have been kind of quite happy. Yeah, it's alright. That's Granada X. Crazy ass music on this boss. E13. We have Fire Shark. Or Same, as the title screen probably said in Japanese. It is a typical vertically scrolling turtle plan shoot 'em up, using the turtle plan engine which they use for every single game they released on the MEGADRIVE, which means there's no parallax scrolling, there's lots of sprites, nothing in the background is animated, including that water which looks like a carpet. What you do have is you have tight gameplay, you have turtle plan style music, which is either to your taste or not, I kind of quite like it, and you have outrageous power-ups, if you can survive long enough to power up, that is. This airplane here, this biplane, does get some ridiculous flamey shots later on, collecting enough peas. So yeah, it's a box standard but quality game. Can't take credit in that. Fire Shark. Fire Shark. In 12, we've got Aeroblasters, which is a horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up from way back in the day. I remember playing this in the arcade, being very impressed by this particular section we're looking at right now. The visuals for this game are alright, the sound is alright, the gameplay is alright. A lot of these games on this list, like I say, are interchangeable in which position they are, depending on which way the wind's blowing that particular day. But what this game does have going for it is a kind of charge shot which gets rid of all the bullets on the screen, which is handy. It has mazy levels, it has some nice bosses. It has a weird level a bit later on where gravity doesn't work in the same way, so your ship's got some, like it's flying on ice, which is a bit weird. But up until that point, it's quite enjoyable. An expensive game to buy these days though, And you can also get it on the PC Engine, which is very similar to this one. Mega Drive one's a bit more like the arcade machine though. In 11, we have Hellfire, and this is converted by the Masna who did Guynog. But it's a strategic shooter where you've got a ugly spaceship which fires huge amounts of lasers at weirdly designed bosses, as you can see here. Don't know why this boss has got like a road on it. Anyway, it's a cool tactical shoot 'em up where you can change the direction of your weapon at any given opportunity just by pressing a button. It's a bit better than the arcade machine it's converted from in terms of graphics. Like some of the things look better than the arcade machine. The colour depth isn't as good as the arcade machine, but the gameplay is tight. The visuals are nice. The music is typical of Tower Plan. And it's pretty good, and the PAL version isn't super expensive, but the Japanese one probably is. Yeah, I like Hellfire a lot. Never played the PC Engine version though. In 10, we've got Biohazard Battle, also known as Crying. Now this is a pre-rendered stroke hand-drawn shooter by, I believe it's by Sega themselves, and we've got some nicely animated stuff in here. We've got a R-Type style orbiting pod thing. Well, is it R-Type? Was it Prehistoric Isle? It's more like Prehistoric Isle. Got 4 weapons to choose from. You've got 4 creatures to choose from. The different creatures have different loadouts. Always pick them on with the baked bean coloured laser, homing laser like this dude here. You've got a charge shot, a bit like R-Type. But yeah, it's a very standard shooter, but what it's got going for it is some lovely levels after the first 2. There's some lovely levels later on. We've got some really cool audio. It's an acquired taste perhaps, but I really like the audio for this game. And some satisfying shooting action. It doesn't do anything stupendous, but it's cool. In 9, we've got Elemental Master by Technosoft. So this is Technosoft's, as far as I know, only run and gun game. But I could be wrong about that. And it's a nice one. It's a kind of a difficult vertical scrolling shooter, as you can see here. You've got a weird control setup where one button fires up the screen and another button fires down the screen. You can collect extra weapons when you defeat bosses, and generally everything's out to murder your face, and murder your face it will the first few times you play it. Actually, this first level is probably the most difficult one to get through the first try. And this boss isn't a cakewalk either. But it's a cool game with nice graphics. Not brilliant graphics, but nice graphics. Decent sound. Not up to Technosoft's best games, but decent nonetheless. And a very large price tag. It's at number 9 in my list. In 8, the Steel Empire, or Empire of Steel. I can't remember what the Japanese name is, but it's something different to that. It's a horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up, as you can see here. You get to pick between 2 different craft before each level. One is this kind of prop airplane, and the other one is a blimp. And you get to shoot steampunk style trains and airships against a bleepy soundtrack. What we have here is some nice visuals and some interesting level designs. I've played this game a lot more than it possibly deserves to be played, and completed it multiple times. It's got an epic last level, and yeah, I just like the overall theme. And on PAL format, it's incredibly cheap. If you're to buy the Japanese version, with its lovely box art, it's very expensive. In 7, we have Truxton, or Tatsujin, depending on which area of the world you live in. Now, this is from the cookie cutter shop at Teo Plan. I think this was probably the first of them actually, so they made the engine for this game, and then every subsequent game used this game engine. But what we have is a pretty decent conversion of the arcade machine. We've lost all the parallax scrolling, we lost some of the details in the backgrounds, but we've retained the exciting gameplay and rock hard gameplay, it has to be said, and the extravagant weapon set, although the weapon set in the Mega Drive version I believe is slightly different to the arcade, especially on the red gun. But hey ho, this is an early Mega Drive release, a good one. I remember buying this back in the day in 1989, as it happens, and enjoying it immensely then, clocking the game. It is bloody hard though, so I must have put some hours in. In 6 we have Guynog. This is a game where you control a angel who's got heavy weaponry coming out of his fist. That must be awkward at dinner parties. We've got some weird graphics. It's almost like you're in a Hieronymus Bosch painting, shooting all sorts of hell beasts with your fist weapon. You can power up to ridiculous levels. It throws around hundreds of sprites. The graphics are muddy. The music has good tunes but is badly produced. The bosses are epic. It's a fun game. I have played this multiple times. So much back in the day, as it happens, I could complete it probably in one life. I love this boss. He is a bullet spewing monstrosity. Yeah, an early game which proved the Mega Drive was a sprite shifting powerhouse. In 5, what do we have here? We have Zeno Crisis, which is crazy. It's a brand new Mega Drive game from 2018 or something like that. It's like a recent game. And what it is a maze shooter, sort of a twin stick style-y, although I don't have a twin stick on a Mega Drive. But it's very, very cool. You roll around these environments, shooting aliens with heavy weaponry, and you pick up dog tags. You're rescuing people, and between levels you are powering up. It's all in order. It's like Smash TV crossed with Alien Syndrome or something like that. It's pretty damn cool, and for a new Mega Drive game to be this high up the list, it had to be something special, and it is. I mean, look at these bosses. It's lovely. It's 50 quid. In 4 we have Forgotten Worlds. Another super early Mega Drive game, but another one that I've sunk a huge amount of hours into back in the day. I mean, these games used to be 40 quid back in the sort of late 80s or early 90s, so you had to play a game over and over again, the same game. So you either loved it or you traded it, and this is a game that I just didn't trade. I loved it. I don't know why. It's probably because it's kind of graphical theme. I'm a bit of a fantasy stroke tech nerd, I suppose, and I'm getting to shoot dragons with like giant napalm guns. I mean, how can you say fairer than that? This game's gone up in price quite a lot recently. Still kind of okay-ish. And yeah, looking at it here, you probably won't feel the same way as me about it, but I freaking love it. Right then. 3. Thunder Force 3. Another game which I played the heck out of back in the day. This one, however, has lovely graphics a lot of the time. Has banging tunes, has a huge amount of weaponry on the screen, and it's just generally a lovely, lovely game. It's very easy to complete on standard difficulty. So it makes it replayable actually, because the game's not too long. It's like only about half an hour long to get through the whole thing. And whilst you do that, you're going to be shooting some amazing bosses, traversing some strange levels at weird angles, because diagonal scrolling was a big thing back in the day. And you're going to be shooting fish-based bosses like this one in the face with massive weaponry. What else do you want from a game? Nothing, I'd suggest. Thunder Force 3. In 2 we have Mushroomest. It's a robot-based, vertically scrolling shooter, and as you can see and hear from this, it's a good-looking and good-sounding shooter. Again, a really early game, and I was an early adopter on this one. I had it as soon as it came out. I just liked the look of it in a magazine. It's gone up in value these days. I don't know if it's gone up in people's estimation. It's probably gone down a bit recently. But it's a highly kinetic, enjoyable, vertically scrolling shoot 'em up. Fairly easy once you get into it. And it's got a cool power-up system. where you keep collecting the shiny pods and you get like outriggers, which you can put into different formations, such as this one, and you get stuff bottled onto your back, and you get lovely bosses. Yeah, it's quality. It's good quality. Mushroomest. And one. We have Thunder Force 4. What else could it have been? And we'll start with a bit of slowdown here, which is not showing its best light. But we have superb quality graphics. We have super sound. We have a shed load of levels. We have awesome gameplay. We have awesome weapons. We have great bosses. Thunder Force 4 is legendary. It's beautiful. It's expensive. It's has to be bought for your Mega Drive if you've got a Mega Drive and you like shooters. You have to get this one. It's expensive in every released region actually, but you can pick it up in compilations and stuff elsewhere. Awesome game. It's up there with the best of the 16-bit generation, arcade or home. You can't believe these graphics. Beautiful. Yeah, so Thunder Force 4 is probably the Mega Drive's best shooter. The other games in the list, you can swap them around, and I wouldn't argue. It's just my list with my my order. I've got about 26 shooters on the Mega Drive, just traditional shooters. About 60 to 70 games overall, so nearly half the games I have on the Mega Drive are shooters, which is good going. It's got volume, the Mega Drive, volume of shooters. I would say the SNES has probably got quality, but the Mega Drive, the best Mega Drive shooters are as good as anything that you're going to find anywhere else. Ah, the MD. What a champion. Alright then, so that's my Mega Drive shooters ranked. I'll catch you later. It's alright.